Hello friends and potential friends. Well, if you saw my last video, you know that I have been saving chicken bones for a while. And I recently decided to cook them down and turn them into bone broth. Well, the bone broth is completed and in the pantry. And now it's time to do something with all these bones. I don't want to just throw them away, but it occurs to me that if I can grind these things up, they ought to make some pretty good bone meal. I cooked these things for almost 4 days, and they're getting pretty brittle. If I had a mortar and pestle, I could probably just grind them up by hand. But I've got this coffee grinder over here that I don't think I've ever put coffee in. I do use it for grinding up a lot of other things though. And so I'm going to see if I can use it to grind up these bones. Break them up a little bit so they'll go down into the chute. And then we'll let's see what we did here. Gonna make quite a mess, but that looks like it's gonna make some pretty good bone meal. So let me get grinding and cranking. Well, this definitely is going to take a little while, but it does seem to be working. I do have another herb grinder over here I can use if I really need to. Now, if you remember that bone broth that I made, you might have noticed that it was rather dark brown. And I think that was because I cooked those bones for nearly 4 days. It did make the bones nice and tender, so I can just crush them up. As easy as that. But I was wondering about how dark the bone broth was, so I tasted it and it tastes good. But going forward, I think what I'll probably do is cook the bones for about a day or so, maybe 2, and then I'll drain off the bone broth and can that, fill it back up with water, and then cook it for a few more days in order to soften up the bones so that they become brittle. And after that second cooking, I'll make the bone meal out of the bones. I'll take the liquid from the second cooking and use that as a special treat in the garden. Maybe I'll even mix some worm castings in with it and make some worm tea out of it. But that way I get multiple uses out of these bones. They served to hold the chickens together until I ate them. Then they turned into a meal for me. Then they turned into bone broth. Now they're turning into bone meal. And eventually they may turn into bone tea. So I think that's probably about as many uses as I'm going to be able to come up with for them. Well, let me go ahead and keep on grinding. Okay, I did switch over to the small herb grinder because it seems to grind a lot better than that coffee grinder does. And I've got quite a bit ground up already. But I'm starting to notice that as I dig into this pile of bones, some of this stuff in the middle is still pretty moist. So I'm going to go ahead and grind up the ones that I can, and then I'm going to put the ones that are still a little bit moist back in the oven and let them cook a while longer. It's only in the 60s here today, so at the very least that'll give me an excuse to run the heat or run the oven longer and warm the kitchen up. Okay, that's about all I'm going to grind up for right now. The rest of this still got some moisture in it. And let's see what we've got. Well, does that look like it was worth a couple hours of work? I think it was. You either have to spend money or you have to spend time. Since I retired, I seem to find I have a lot more time than I do money. The reason I spread this out is because I'm fairly sure that I got at least a little bit of moisture into the powder. So these bones are going back in the oven. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the oven too to try to get rid of any more moisture that's in it. Once that's all done, I'll grind the rest of these and then I'll put them in this coffee container probably with a couple of oxygen absorbers and start using it in the garden. There's my bone meal. What do you think? I'll see you next time.